Yay, you made it.
Passcode. Oh, but you didn't fix the mute, I see.
Oh, no.
No. You're trying to catch somebody saying something.
I'm
aren't you?
trying to get somebody. I need to fix it because I thought I had that fixed before, actually, but
I don't know. I mean,
I've
I
been
don't.
up.
You got to go up in your settings somehow. Oh, that's right. I forgot about this document. Yeah. I
Right.
think I sent this document to my son. I can't remember if I did or not.
Well, he would love it.
I know he would. He would. But either that or he'd be like, Mom, I don't have time to read all this.
Right.
Why you send me all this long stuff?
Right.
He's like that, though. He's like, are you recording this?
I just started recording.
Oh, okay. I'll be quiet then.
Okay. We're live on YouTube and all that good stuff. We'll get started and then I'll turn it off. All right. So, as we went over last week, this is going to be part 2. I need to learn how to edit too. That's a pretty good thing. But we have went over Are You Gods? And as the scripture says, I know a lot of people get upset, but the scripture says, I said, you are gods, but with a little g here, right? Are you gods, sons of the Most High, all of you? So this is where we are drawing this from. Is the scriptures saying that we have the power of God? Do we have the power? We know we have, people say, I have the Holy Spirit. So what's the disconnect? What's going on as to, they say they have these things, but yet even the scripture says what? It says that you can do all these things, right? You can walk on water, you can move mountains, you can do all these things, you can heal the sick, raise the dead. So what's the disconnect? Because a lot of churches I see don't have these type of powers, if you will, if you want to call them that. But yet the scripture says we do, right? So we're going to go over that. Even our documents here show us of where and what we're missing. I would submit to you we're missing the connection to the creator Yahweh. We're missing the connection and the creator of Yeshua. And then we just don't know. If you don't know, how can you do something, right? If I said, hey, go build me a rocket and I'm going to shoot it off the dome. Okay, what with? Where do I start? What do I do? Without the knowledge, a lot of people would stand there and go, okay, I'd like to do this, but I have no idea. But then when you learn how to do these things or just your part, then if all that makes sense, right? So let's go on. We have noted we went over the 17 pages and we're going to continue to go on. So the 17 pages that we have went over has showed us that there is frequencies, there is the brain, there is an absolute, there is all these things that we can clearly see, right? We can clearly see of what these studies and facts are doing. And we have not only this, but we have the proof of the frequencies and all of what they've been doing. Time, space, dimension. So this, again, I think tells us of prayer, angels, the realm of Yahweh, the different heavens, and what we're looking at. It clearly is facts of there is these things. They do exist. The powers that be know they exist, but they want to keep it a secret, right? They don't want us to know. Why would you not share this? Why would this, to me, just thinking forward, wouldn't you want your workers to have this knowledge? Wouldn't you want your workers to say, do better things? Wouldn't you want your workers to be able to live things and do things instead of doing 10 people, hiring and paying for 10 people to do this? You could do maybe with one. It just seems like, but when you realize that these people would have a knowledge beyond what they want us to, right? Beyond what they want our little caged rat trap minds to be a part of. So going forward, interviewing dimensions. We went over all this. I think we stopped on page 17. Dimensions in between. All these different things that are showing clearly that these frequencies that we put out, whether it's voice or just praying, we still put out, we still emit a frequency, right? And they know this and they've tested this. So we have the energy, the frequency wave and what it does. And we went over that. They call it clicked out. Some of these people in different religions call it a meditation. There's a yoga one, and you have to be careful in these things because you're tapping in and tapping out, if that makes sense, right? Just as much as you can tap into these realms, once you surpass this dimension, the dimension you're going into is what? Demons, demonic, all these things. So if you don't know what you're doing, then you can bring up evil spirits, evil things, just like sage. Sage is a herb. It's something that we can use. It's something you can use very well. It's been known for ages. But witches use it to burn and use as a bad thing. Makes sense? So we have to know what we're getting ourselves into. And again, I don't recommend this for anybody to try and meditate and a lot of things that a lot of people are doing anyway is for the wrong reasons, right? A lot of people want to talk to their dead grandmama or their great-great-grandma, and so a lot of these things are just we're not supposed to do anyway. The whole point of doing this would to be get closer to the creator and to know more of his will. So with all that being said, let's go. We have working from the widely accepted Big Bang Theory. He presents a conceptual model to elicit the process of time-space evolution, relative position of the universal hologram. So why it's saying a hologram, if you missed the first part of this, your mind presents what you tell it, so to speak, right? Your mind, and so much so, I was wanting to put some more things on here, that there is people on YouTube who have moved a 24-ton truck. One man moved it by himself. I didn't see any wires. I didn't see anything. It's just one of those things. And we know that's true. We know that other people have done things like that. Sometimes it's because of a car running over their child or a car running into traffic, and they have stopped this. Now, our scientists and our doctors will tell us the human femur can only handle 7 to 10 pounds. This bone can only handle this much, and it will break. And we see that, right? We see people that walk outside and the hammer or sledgehammer or something hits them and it breaks their arm. But we also see weightlifters lift 700 pounds and it doesn't break their arm. So how can that be? There's got to be something going on, right? So what's going on? I would submit to you, they know what's going on. It's just keeping you in between the lines. It's when we're out of sync, when we're not there, when we don't believe. And what happens in most cases? Have you ever lifted something and wondered how are you lifting that and then it's heavy? Have you ever came out of the water scuba diving? That I know, sharky, right? But the limitations are only a lot of times on the person, right? That the limitations are what you're told. So what we're doing is watching what's going on. Basically, what we're being told is what is in here, right? A weightlifter, why can a weightlifter only lift so much weight, whether it's bench press or putting up? Because they're watching others lift the weight, right? They're watching others and the fear and whatever's in them, right? So all that is in there, and it's kind of a part of what they know, right? The same thing we get taught at school and different things. We become what So from that being said, that's what I'd submit of all this is about. We fall short because, and I'm not just saying religiously, I'm saying spiritually, physically, mentally, all these things, we're falling short because we have went to a church and the church has told us you can do these things, but yet they haven't showed us, right? So what's the difference? The truth is in the pudding, right? The truth is in what we see. So whether we know it or not, subconsciously going to this church and seeing people saying they want prayer, they want prayer, they want prayer, well, we see A and B doesn't connect. A and B, something's wrong. So we have to ask ourselves, either this religion is just totally off or something is wrong. Something is missing, right? You ever put a big puzzle together and there's 2 pieces missing and it's 1,000-piece puzzle? You're like, where's the pieces? Was it in the box? And right, you go mad looking for stuff. Oh, where's the puzzle piece? There's something missing. A lot of times we're told, don't worry about it. You haven't prayed enough. You haven't fasted enough. You haven't done this enough. But really, I would submit that a lot of it is we don't believe it. We don't have the faith and we don't believe it. And that's why we can't do the things that we should do. So going forward, the operating on the premise in the universe, smaller process intend to be a mirror of image of larger ones. So essentially, we're putting forth our own hologram, like the Matrix, right? We are coming up with our own analogies. We're coming up with our own life lessons, if you will, and we put ourselves in a box, right? You go and you go to the doctor, and I pray you don't, but just throwing it out there. You go to the doctor and you hear you got cancer. Your automatic thought is death, right? You have been programmed so much, and maybe even seen. My mom had colon cancer, and fighting and all this, that, and the other, but the end result, she finally passed away. So with all that being said, when you start seeing that, your mind, when you hear of these things, your automatic response, your knee-jerk response is, oh, we know how this is going to end. But with Yahweh and with our faith, it doesn't have to end that way, right? And I've seen people come back to life. I've seen people being prayed for. I've seen these people's life change and are still living today, who wasn't supposed to be living any longer, who doctors and all this had deep vein things and they were supposed to die. And even the doctors themselves said, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You go to the emergency room, you're in trouble when you go to the emergency room and the doctor says, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know. That's why we here. Why are you here? So when you come into these things, it's like, oh no, we're in trouble. We got to find these puzzle pieces, and quickly, right? So these are our missing puzzle pieces, I believe. The pattern of electrons around the nucleus of an atom mirrors the way planets orbit their suns, and so on. So what this means, and it's not what a lot of people, oh my gosh, see, there's proof. The atom is an atom. It's a little bitty thing, right? And it imitates what's around it. So it grows, and your body and your cells are a little bitty thing. But yet those little bitty things become a baby, which become a man and a woman. Only a man or a woman, right? Not what we see today. But there's confusion. But what we see from all this is that becomes something bigger, and it's growing. And your body's always trying to replace what went wrong. It's always trying to heal itself, just like Yahweh made us. He made us, right? We don't think of well, what if this person gets hurt, or what if Adam got cut, or what if that happened, or what if that happened. He made us to replenish, to heal, which is a miracle when you really look at it. When you see a cut on the hand and it heals, and you really don't have to do anything. You can help put stuff on it. You can take some herbs, you can take some ginseng, or you can take this incendiary, or you can take different things, and it helps the process and you can see it. But essentially, as long as your body's working correctly, in a week or 2 weeks, usually the skin and everything, it's just, you don't even recognize it anymore, right? So how does all that come about? That's because that's the way we're made and the way it all works. Even the earth itself, if you've ever seen things, say holes in the ground or different things, it's trying to heal itself. It's trying to take care of what it can. Now, if you dig a big 6-foot hole, then yes, you're going to have a 6-foot hole, right? But eventually it might fill up with water and it might cave in. Makes sense? So let's go on. Operating on the premise that in the universe, smaller processes tend to mirror the images of the larger ones. So taking this clue from the observed capability of quasars to eject enormously concentrated beams of matter from their interiors in the controlled non-centric version of the Big Bang, he envisions a similar process occurring in the generation of the universe. So what they're saying, on one side, you're always going to have one side saying, yes, that's the way it happened. That's what they believe. That's what they come up with. But then on the other side, you have the people that say that can't happen that way, because if it happened that way, then when I shoot a shotgun, I just created a universe. And where's my little pet alien? Where's my ET, right? Where's my little buddy? So so we have these debates, if you will. But on my side of it, I can see that Yahweh created it, and he created everything within that image, or within that, just like we see the atom, we see the nucleus, we have this, we have that. Why they call an atom with a T instead of D? Still an atom, right? Atom, right? Where did they get this knowledge? I would say a lot of this is a biblical knowledge. A lot of these so-called smart guys with a lot of wisdom was actually biblical scholars and biblical. They had the reasoning from the Bible, as unlike today, where a lot of these are, we would like to think that they don't know the Bible, but I think they know more than they probably should for some of them. Okay, let's go on. He sees that matter in our universe entering the avoid pattern following ejection from the nucleus composed of extremely compressed energy through a white hole. At the end of its trip to the far end of the avoid, he sees it departing like a black hole. In such a model, time is observed to be measured of the change which occurs as energy, right? So what do we see here? What about the atomic bomb? The atomic bomb is taking atoms and pulling them away, I believe, and then the atoms collide back together so quickly that it makes a big explosion. But it destroys and it doesn't make, right? So the Big Bang, and just my personal thing I put in here, the Big Bang is just like an atom bomb. To me, it would destroy, it wouldn't form. And I think we see that in that, when you take nuclear fusion, you take atoms, you split atoms, it makes destruction, it makes, and we see that, Japan did not have a skyscraper built. They didn't have people come to life. They didn't have fish forming. They didn't have monkeys. They had total destruction. So, on that side of this argument, that exactly a Big Bang would be destructive. It wouldn't produce life. But I think what they're trying to say without saying it, is I think what they're trying to get at is, in the beginning, Yahweh created the universe and he created it all. And they don't want to say that, right? But at the ending, they're calling it a black hole. So at the ending, what we see is what? We see Yahweh made everything the way it is, right? Right. So what you have is they have, a lot of these papers, especially military and government type things, they're not wanting to admit, and they can't admit. You can't say the earth is flat and the earth is this and the earth is that in this paper that somebody else, you don't want everybody to know, right? It's for your eyes only. It's for those who need to know, that kind of thing. So anyway, let's go on. Let's go. So I think that's what my opinion of this is. He's talking about from creation to the ending, there's a black hole at the end. There's something that's going to, and this is from this experiment. So they're not just kind of whistling and create, they're not just making it up to a point. They are, but they ain't, if that makes sense. What they're doing is these people have actually sat down and put whatever on their head and been electrified and meditated and whatever they've tortured these people into doing. I'm sure that there's shots, medications, all kinds of whatever, right? But the fact of the matter is these people have actually went beyond the matrix, if you will. They went beyond the time and space. They've actually seen and reported and spoke these things. So for a person standing there with a paper and pad, how can they explain Private James just said, there's an ending to all this. I'm outside. If this is all true, this guy is sitting there and he's saying, I'm outside of time and space. Time and space mean nothing to me. Yes, he's laying there, but time and space, his spirit, his mind, his frequency has went beyond his body on that table. And his soul, if you will, whatever that his energy is that is outside that time and space, because it surely can't be his body, can it? So whatever is outside that energy field, he is saying, and they're trying to record what's happening. And he's reporting that there is no real time and space out there. There is no limitations. And by the way, the beginning of time, there's a creator who created, but the ending of time, there's a darkness. Now, when we add this up to biblical terms, which I'm trying to connect, what happens if Yahweh does not know you? Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. Wouldn't that be a black hole? He says his spirit will not be there. So would that not be a darkness? Would that not be considered? And again, this guy's probably not the most educated person on earth. This is probably Private James, who's probably had whatever education, right? Because he's in the army now. So he probably don't have a whole quantum leap, a whole quantum physics. He's probably not got a bunch of degrees on his wall in this. He's just the guinea pig, right? He's the scapegoat in all this. But he's still replying to his best of knowledge, and they're reporting off of him, if that makes sense. So our place in time, how do we get to our place in time? What is this? What does that all make sense, right? The observed distribution of the galaxy suggests that our particular universe is located near the top of the egg at the point where matter begins to fall back on itself, thus explaining the reason why the galaxies to north are seen to be moving away more rapidly as they are caught in the downturn of the stream of matter towards the far end of the cosmetic egg, if you will. See, eating them eggs, knowing what they have in them. Layered over this cosmetic egg is the absolute, which sustains the radiation nucleus from which the original jet of matter issued forth. As the stream of matter moves around the void towards its destination at the black hole. So, wow. Now you also have to consider these guys, I probably wouldn't I wouldn't say they're biblical scholars, right? So what they're putting here, like eggs and things like that. I found the smarter the person, sometimes they have a glitch in their process. Their mind works maybe greatly, but there's a glitch in how they put their mind down on paper or what they're doing, so much so that it seems like the greater the mind, the more the glitch, the more you can see it. Have you ever seen somebody, I'm not going to say any names, but I know people that are biblical scholars. I mean, they could probably sit down and tell you, if you had the time, the front to the back of the Bible, and they could about ask questions in Aramaic or in Greek or in Hebrew. I mean, any language almost of 4 or 5 different languages, they could probably tell you verbatim, per word, what's what. But yet, to hear them talk and say it is not always as clean as pretty as we'd like it to be, right? Right. Yahweh confounds the wise and they are foolish. So we have to understand that with these people that are saying this, they're not going to say Yahweh is the absolute. They're not going to say, they're going to use words like this egg, which makes really no sense to me, but they're going to say things because they don't know what to put there, right? So let's throw something in there that makes me sound smart, but it's like, what are you talking about? Eggs, chickens, what's going on? But anyway, as the stream matter moves around the void towards the destination at the black hole, and here's their picture of it. I mean, I'm glad they shared this. The incredible edible egg, right? But this is their picture of this. So what we can see, though, and what I'd like to share here, is we have the millions of billions of people, 7.1 billion people now. This is probably less than, of course, but these are the people of Yahweh. We have all created in the image of Yahweh. We are all part of the family of Yahweh, unless we deny, right? If we deny and we live our life and we do what we want to do. So I would submit to you, this is the people that probably this guy is seeing. He's seeing a dimensional thing that how does he know? You know what I'm saying? How do you get Private James, who has a degree in nothing? He's a grunt infantry, got a rifle in his hand. It ain't even an M16 at this point. It's a M2 Abrams, it's a, what do they call them old infantry things that you get 3 bullets? I mean, his knowledge of life in general at 18 probably isn't very good, or he wouldn't be sitting on the table being the guinea pig, or he'd have ran off the next chance he got. So trying to explain this to them and give this to them, but I think they've done a pretty good job at, on the third person, second person of explaining what they're saying. But if you don't know the creator, and if you don't know the ending from the beginning, if you don't know the Bible, trying to describe something like this becomes a job within itself, I would say, right? How does any one of these people know what they're seeing or talking about, but yet they kind of are getting something? So anyway, with all that being said, if it makes sense, the jet of matter, we have the creator who's amongst us. I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. So essentially, we are not ever left of this creator from the beginning to the ending. But once we come out of this time, this life as we know it, there's a black hole. There is a thing here that's saying, what? You didn't listen to me. You wasn't my child. You didn't do what I told you to do. And then you get to go pay for your problems, your sins, whatever, right? So let's go on. The direction of the time-space, point of where the flow of time and space turns, the opposite of the void. So the direction of the time and space is going this way, right? And it's all flowing around. And this has nothing to do with the earth or how it moves. This is all time within itself and how time and direction of such moves. The universe, the black hole and the white hole. So we have this bigger than me thing that's happening, right? This big thing that's happening to the world, to the plane T or the planet. Don't throw it in there. So you're having all this going at the same time, all these people. But at the same time, it's like we're coming up to the dump, right? We got a dump here and somebody's going somewhere. Somebody's getting dropped off, right? Somebody's going to the swimming pool. Somebody's getting dropped off. Now, at which swimming hole you would like to go is your choice. Would you like to the black hole or the white one? Which one? And it's funny that the black hole seems to be much bigger and larger than the white one. The white one's like a little dot, where the black hole. So could this mean that he says, many will say to me in that day? So many are going to go to what they're showing as the black hole as opposed to the white hole. But we all see, and they have seen, and they're documenting, this is what's going on. The universe, if you will, is the universe. It's all going on. But then it comes down into an individual program, right? We're all part of the world, but we're not of the world. We can go to Walmart, but we're not a worker of Walmart, right? We can go there and we can be a believer. It don't mean we have to believe in what Target believes and all that kind of stuff. Whether you go these places or whatever, I'm just trying to make a point, right? You can go to Target and you don't have to agree with their bathroom. You don't have to agree with their stuff. You don't have to agree with any of that, but you're still a part of this program. The nucleus and the hologram. So the nucleus is what the actual goings on, the heart of the matter. The hologram is what you perceive, what's going to happen, what's going to be, right? Hope that makes sense. Now, we see this rendition of what's happening here. So it's all going and twisting and turning just like life. We're seeing all these things that are happening, right? Right. You can also, I'm all for boycotting some places and some things, especially when they infringe upon the rights of other people. And to me, that's, if I want to go somewhere and do something and you're telling me I have to believe somebody else and whatever they're doing, then that's infringing upon my rights, whether you agree, disagree, all that. But, there's two sides of the rights, I believe. There's the person who wants to do something and the person that's trying to push what they're doing on the person that don't want to do with it. I just want to go buy some water. I just want to see what kind of salad you got. I want to see if you got some sprouting jars. No, then, your agenda and your clothes and all that junk, I didn't come for them anyway. I didn't even know they was there. But once we find out they're there, then we can do something about it. Anyway, that's before we get off on that rabbit hole tangent. We see that they know what's happening. And they know very well, more than the average person, average Joe, even people that go to church, if you will, sadly. So let's go on to the cosmic egg. Maybe this was, they probably had Mork then, I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking this guy watched way too many Mork and Mindy shows. It generates the interfering pattern with the cosmic egg, which constitutes the universal hologram or torus. Since the torus is being simultaneously generated by matter in all the various phases of time, it reflects the development of the universe in the past, present, and future. It would be seen from our particular perspective on one phase at a time, right? So obviously, again, this guy's seeing it from the Mork and Mindy, right? The Mork and Mindy avenue of approach. By reflecting on this model, it becomes possible to see human consciousness brought to a sufficient altered focus state. I use that word, focus, right? Focus, Stephanie. No disassemble, Stephanie. Anyway, I just write. State contain information concerning the past, present, and future, since they all exist in the universe hologram simultaneously. In the case of the future, because of the consequences of the past and the present, can be seen coming together in the hologram, such as the time can be predicted or seen. Now, this is very interesting, right? This is very interesting because people say, well, I don't know. I can't see. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a nabby. I can't prophesy and all these things. But a lot of people know when they do something, what's going to happen, right? If you go to Walmart and you steal a pork chop, put it in your pocket and walk out, you know there's cameras. You know you're probably going to pay for that said pork chop, right? Now, are you going to, what are they going to do? But is that reading the future? In a way, you know, if you get caught, what's going to happen to you? So you kind of know. That's what I see saying here. You know, by reflecting on this, you know what you've seen in the past, present, and future. So you know what's going to happen. Your hologram of your mind is presenting, and I'm sure we've done this before, and I'm sure it's probably been on the wrong side of this hologram that we've done this, right? Whether it's relationships or whether it's driving cars, drinking, whatever. I'm sure we've all had this. I probably shouldn't do this. I probably shouldn't do this. And sure enough, it plays out. If I do this, I'm going to pay for it, right? I mean, the partiers know all too well. If I get drunk tonight, I'm going to pay for it tomorrow. I got to go to work tomorrow. I got to go run 4 miles. I don't want to do this. I shouldn't do this. And you do it anyway. And you walk out there and you got 40 guys that smell like beer and alcohol because all weekend, that's what's coming out of them. And you can physically smell it. You can literally smell all these people made some wrong decisions throughout the weekend, right? It's coming out. It smells. You can like, So we all see that this is our hologram. We know our hologram. We know our future. We just know it, right? Ran into a guy in Charleston, Illinois, gave him a card. I think he was drinking and driving, and gave him a card and all this. And he says, I'm never going to drink again. You know, I'm never going to drink again. Do you think he did? Do you think that he kept that vow, even though he know he got away with it and he shouldn't have done it? His hologram was screaming, if you get caught, you're going to jail. Just by us talking to him was confirming probably what he knew earlier that night, right? But that hologram was screaming to him, and we just kind of amplified it, if you will. Now, whether he ever drunk again or not, I think he called me at 2 a.m. a week or two later and asked me for a taxi, or asked me for a ride at 2 a.m. And like I was a taxi service. But anyway, obviously he did it again. Moreover, if it is possible to see the implosion of the energy patterns would cross and recross and create incredibly complex 4-dimensional holograms of Taurus in the spinal shape and the reflection of the multi-dimensional developing pattern of evolution. All the movements of the energies which comprise the universe leave their mark and hence tell their story throughout time. So again, what do you want on your tombstone? I mean, I'm not, but really when we see what happens is what reflects. People leave their mark, and at their ending, a lot of it's lies, but a lot of people say this guy was a great guy. This girl was a great girl. They did, but really in between that, the truth is usually, this sister was a great help to the Ahad. She said the service is finito, and brother, this brother, he did the liturgy, and the truth, the mark of what you do in life comes out within all of that. So the energy, the pattern of what you've done is undeniable, right? It's undeniable of what you've done there, right? So what you have there is, well, we'll pray for you. Pray Yahweh helps you. And, but a lot of it is just what we perceive. And so much so that there have been people, and this is another study, but it kind of coincides with this one, so I'll share it. There have been some guinea pigs, sadly, there's been some guinea pigs that's done some horrific things. The people that are in charge of them should be probably put in jail. But a lot of these people, they just got up and told them every day, you look sick, you feel bad. And by them saying that, they physically got ill from that. So this kind of coincides with that. If you tell somebody, or if you say, and no matter what your situation, you say, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to feel better. And you pray and you give it to Yahweh, and Yahweh, remember me. You promised, you said. And this is where I believe all these frequencies, all these come together. I think from my explanation and my study is what their point really should be, and what they're trying to say with their limited knowledge of biblical and Ruach and all that all together, right? So I think with all that being said, right? So with all that being said, is what they're trying to, show us. So we noted earlier that the out-of-body state involves projection of a major portion of the energy pattern that represents the human consciousness, so that it may move either freely throughout the terrestrial sphere for purposes of information acquisition, or into other dimensions outside of time and space, perhaps to interact with other forms of consciousness within the universe. Now, I see this clear as day. The watchers, the angels, the stars, if you will, are the watchers. Their job, some of their job, not all their job, no, some of their jobs is to watch over us. When we sleep, their purpose is to watch over us. So if we pray and we talk to Yahweh, no, we're not praying to the angel. We're praying to Yahweh, the Ruach, the Creator. What I submit to you, what they're trying to get is absolute. We're praying to the Creator, but the Creator sends these. Now, do they hear our prayers? Can they hear our prayers? I think they know. I think they're conscious. I think Scripture shows us that they know those prayers went up. Yahweh sent me, but I was hindered. I think we have proof of this through Scriptures of angels being dispatched, and not just one, sometimes multiple, sometimes many. If we look at Elijah, I believe it was, show him how. I mean, this works perfectly again with the Bible, I believe, with Scriptures that show him. How could he see? How was his eyes open? I believe this goes right along with that his spiritual eyes was open. He could see that dimension of angels. He could clearly see, just like if we look up, and according to Scriptures, there's astral, there's terrestrial, what are these? Is there ET floating around on something? Is he really fighting against Captain Kirk? Does we really need Warp 5, Scotty? Is that all true or not? Or is it just they're really angels? They're really there and we can't really comprehend because, again, our hologram, because, again, what does it matter? What does flat earth, round earth, this earth, that earth, donut earth, what does it matter? Right here is what matters. Our thinking, our hologram, what we project, right? Because what I project is what I believe. What I put in is what's going to come out. If I believe I can go lift a car, if I believe I can walk on water, who can stop me? The only thing that's going to stop me is when the proof hits the pudding, right? The only thing's going to stop is when I walk across that lake and I sink or I keep walking, right? Now, what's amazing, Sand Hill RTVs, where we used to go four-wheeling, right? At this place, there's people that take a four-wheeler and run it across a four-wheeler across the lake. Something in here, something in their frequency, something said, I can do this, or they wouldn't do it. Now, don't get me wrong. There's people who have attempted this and they didn't make it, right? So how does one person take a four-wheeler, a Raptor 750, just like I have, and drive it across the lake and go across it? And the next person hits that lake and flips and flops and hurts themselves. Their frequency, their existence, their what we know, come to know as faith is what I would submit. Their faith failed them, right? And personally, you know, I think we've all watched these bikers and they jumped, what was his name? Evel Knievel. There's a great name for some childhood things, right? Evel Knievel. Yeah. That's what we should be watching. That's what we should be right there in the name. But within that, some people thought they could drive their bikes off of railroad tracks and big jumping things and jumping off the porches and jumping off the things. And you're flying on your bike. You know, it's like the ET before ET. Where did that come from? Probably from. Anyway, so what we get at is one day I jumped my bike off a big old ramp, concrete thing. And at the very end, before the bike left the air, I thought, I can't do this. And guess what happened? I ended up upside down, head in the mud, face in the mud, because my last thought before that bike left the earth, without that 1,000-mile-an-hour, if I'd have had the 1,000-mile-an-hour, I'd have scooted. Anyway, so before we're everywhere, I landed on my face in the mud, hurt myself, all because I doubted. I thought, this is too high. This is too much. I've gone too far, right? I needed to be beamed up, right? But on this same level, this is what I believe the universe, if you will, is showing us. It's what the Creator has sent to let us know. But even in their chain of thought, they're telling us, if you doubt yourself, if you doubt this, you're in trouble, right? Human beings have this form of elevated consciousness and does the absolute, but in case of the latter, it is a function of the omnipotent. That sounds like somebody read a little bit of Bible, somebody been to a little bit of church. It might have been a Sunday church, but they went somewhere, right? The omnipotence in perceptional unity. When energy returns to a state of total rest within the absolute, it returns to the continuum of the consciousness in the pool of limitless, timeless perception that resides there. Thus, the more complex an energy system in the material state, the more consciousness it possesses to maintain its reality. Our consciousness, therefore, is that differentiated aspect of the universal consciousness, which resides within the absolute. So, if we're going to say Yahweh is this absolute, he is the creator, and he created all. And then Yahweh himself says, you are gods, I've called you gods, and by the way, you're made in my image. What limits us to anything? So going forward, there's people that pray for people. I know a guy named Mark. And Mark goes to church. Mark prays for people. There's 3 or 4 other people that are bigger than him in the church. They're the pastors, relatives. We'll just leave it at that before we get too deep into it. But these people are praying for the same said man, and they're praying for him. He's in a wheelchair. Mark feels Mark should pray for the man in the wheelchair. Why can't he be healed? This is what he says he hears. Why can't he be healed today? Why can't he be healed right now? So Mark interrupts two or three other people that are praying for the guy in the wheelchair and prays for the guy. The guy starts shuddering and shaking, and the guy gets up and walks out of his wheelchair, just like Mark heard. So is this all what we're seeing here? That frequency, he heard what he heard, and he reacted on what he heard. So will we do what we hear? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. You know, I hate to sound like a commercial, but sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. So sometimes you feel like a nut. I don't know. We're just having a ball today. Sometimes you don't. But, you know, actually, sometimes I feel led to do something. Sometimes I feel led. Sometimes I hand somebody a card. Sometimes I feel like don't. I've even had moments that people are like, why didn't you tell that guy something? Why didn't you say that? I had nothing, right? There's nothing that I felt to do. I heard no frequency. I heard nothing, you know, and sometimes I've even felt like, get away from these people. Let them be what they're doing. So all this, I believe, comes into play daily, if you will. We know what's going on. We can see what's going on. And the more in tune we are with Yahweh. Do you want me to sing that? Yes, go ahead. Sing a bar. We're having fun today. Ain't nothing to say we can't have fun, right? Since the consciousness exists quite apart from the outside of reality, beyond the bounds of time and space, it is like the absolute has neither a beginning or end. Telling you, this guy's read a little bit of Bible, a little bit, has neither an ending or a beginning. Sounds just like scripture, right? Yahweh has no ending or no beginning. We may not understand that. We might go to the third heaven and still not understand it, but it doesn't make it untrue. It just makes it we don't get it, right? Maybe we don't need to get it. Maybe in our fallen state, we're not worthy to understand some of these things. But the fundamental quantum of energy and its associated consciousness is eternal. Boy, we having revival up at this place, right? I wonder how many of these people actually went to a church or went to, after finding out this stuff is true. Wouldn't that be something? Especially if you was like an atheist or you was something that just didn't believe in anything. And then you found out, you know, and maybe he didn't even know what he was saying here, but he found out this is a Bible verse. Wouldn't that be awesome? You know, you guys writing stuff down and the commander's like, why'd you put a Bible verse in your report? And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, it has neither an ending or a beginning. Like, I didn't know that was even in the Bible, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's go on. When reality ends, its consistent energy simply returns to infinity and into the absolute. So right there, how do they get this? Because they're testing and going on beyond what we know, right? You know, those other, I don't know why these commercials are coming to mind, but that old commercial about the eggs, you could tell what this was from, because you remember those old commercials said the mind is a terrible thing to waste, and they cracked the egg. So between Mark and Mindy and that commercial of the eggs, the guy didn't have a chance. It was his hologram. And that's why he put it in here. See how this all works out? Maybe later. All right. Consciousness in perspective. Having asserted that human consciousness is able to separate from physical reality and interact. Wow, we're only on page 19. We might have to have a part 3 to this. I didn't think it'd go this long. right? And that is both eternal and designed for ultimate return to the absolute. We are faced with the question, so what happens then? Since memory is a function of consciousness and therefore enjoys the same eternal character as the consciousness which accounts for its existence, it must be admitted that when consciousness returns to the absolute, it brings with it all the memories it has accumulated. Whoa. I think these people didn't know what they was talking about. Do you? But they're talking very biblical, the way I see it. All the memories it has accumulated through experiences in reality. The return of consciousness to the absolute does not imply an extinction of the separate entity which the consciousness organized and sustained in reality. Rather, it suggests a differentiated consciousness which merges with the participants in the universal consciousness and infinity of the absolute, infinity, right? An infinity of the absolute without losing the separate identity and accumulated self-knowledge which its memories confer it of. So we're going to go back up here and see their little drawing and what they did here. So essentially, again, your mind is a terrible thing to waste. But what we see is that mind, and what I'm suspecting here, proposing, learning, what if, and I'm just saying what if, I'm not prophesying and say this is the way it is. What if these memories from the cradle to the grave, you remember what you remember? Obviously, until you're accountable, until you're such and such age, the other memories might just very well be memories. But if you're 5 years old and you know you shouldn't have took the candy bar, if you're 7 years old, you know you shouldn't have slapped grandma on her face. You know, those might be very well judgmental moments, right? So point is, what if said person lives to be 100 years old? Said person takes 100 years of judgment from start to finish. What's that to Yahweh? What's that to the universe? What's that to anybody? If that person is being judged, so essentially, I would say when you die, because that's judgment to me, when you die, you start being judged. So when this happens, could that be your lifetime, right? You hear people say that their life flashed before them. Could that be the way your mind really works? Will you have to stand there for 100 years, or in your superior body, dare we say, without your flaws, without your sin, without these things, will that 100 years go by to you as in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute? Make sense? Outside of time and space, even if you stood there for 100 years, if we lose the concept, the hologram of time and space, or what does it matter? We've just entered into eternity, if that makes sense, right? So with all that being said, again, we come up with the same thing as what they had there, that the nucleus and what it's going to, right? All right. We're going to stop recording here in a little bit. I think we'll do 1 or 2 more pages, and then we'll save it. What do we got? 17, 18, 19, 24. We'll do about 5 pages and then come back and do the rest later. Where was we? What it does, lose the capability for generation of independence. The thought of holograms, since that can be done only by energy in motion. In other words, it retains the power to perceive, but loses the power of will or choice, which kind of sounds like judgment, right? At judgment, you don't really have the power of the will or the choice. Depart from me, I never knew you, or well done, thou good and faithful servant. It sounds like they're knowing a little bit more than maybe even they should, right? But in other words, it retains the power to perceive, but loses the power of will and choice. In exchange, however, this consciousness participates in the all-knowing, infinite continuum of consciousness, which is characteristic of energy in the ever-present. Consequently, it is accurate to observe that when a person experiences the out-of-body state he is in fact, projecting that the eternal spark of consciousness and memory, which constitutes the ultimate source of the identity, to let it play in and learn from dimensions both inside and outside the time-space world in which his physical component currently enjoys a short period of reality. Now, just thinking and reading this is sound like they actually killed people and brought them back to life. Or how would you know? You know, Brother Jackson, I wish he was here to hear that, because I think he would love that. I think that would be up his alley of what his questions he was asking. Was it 6 months or so? About 6 months ago, was it, that he did that out-of-body experience? Right. You know, I mean, that's what I'm saying. They had to kill people. They had to bring them back for them to know of these things, right? So they had to be this kind of talking. It's pretty apparent what was going on. But with all that being said, it's the answer, I believe, to what Brother Jackson was asking. What about what happens? What goes on? Here's the answer right here. It's, you know, it's right here on the paper. It says the out-of-body state he is in. So, and the eternal spark of consciousness. You know, it's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of humbling and humiliating, and I don't know what all to say that we do these things, or we have, and these are years ago. I mean, this is what, the 50s we're talking about, the 60s or 80s, 83, Mork and Mindy time. I mean, think of what's going on today and the technology and the things they got, you know, and what they're doing to add to this, because man never quits, right? He never says that's enough. Wait, I have another question. Let's find another guinea pig. So let's go on. 28, the gateway method. I think we'll close it after this one. We'll go over this and then we'll save and have part 3. Yeah, we will in next week. We'll just do part 3. Having put the gateway experience in context by, this thing's in the way here now a little bit, structural outline of how and what it seems to work, and having known what it is designed to achieve, the time has come to examine the specific techniques which comprise the gateway training process. These techniques are designed to enable the user of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states which can't be achieved if the user continues to work. That can or can't? Can be. Looks like it can't, but then it looks like something on the page, right? Can be achieved if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. So not only are they doing this, these poor guys are being taped. I mean, they're like VHSing them going on. So that's, you know, that's sick enough in itself. Anyway, the amount of time required to reach advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies with the individual. The sensitivity of his nervous system, his general state of mind, and the context or the extent to which he may have previously developed facility in related techniques such as transcendental meditation, and are all pertinent factors. Okay. The tapes was mentioned earlier. All right. Yeah, I mean, we'll just go on. The sensitivity of the nervous system, his general state of mind, and the extent to which he may have previously developed. So again, if you know how to get there and you're still alive from the last go around, then it's easier for you to do it again. So obviously they had people that are doing this over and over. And once they figured out how to do it, it's easier for them to get to these places. Factors affecting the speed at which he may expect to process. The gateway process begins by teaching the individual participant to isolate extraneous concerns in the visualization device called an energy converse box. Next, the participant is introduced to a method of encouraging his mind and body to strive to achieve a state of resonance through utterance of a single tone, a monotonous. What are we at? Oh, protracted humming sound that sets up a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. He engages in this resonant tuning, as it is called, by humming along with a chorus of such sounds that are contained on the gateway tape. Following this, the participant is exposed to the gateway affirmation, and is encouraged to repeat it to himself as he hears it repeated on the tape. The affirmation is a statement to the effect that the individual realizes that he is more than merely a physical body and that he deeply desires to expand his consciousness. Wow. That's just something else, right? So they're using what they say is a humming sound. They're using sounds, they're using frequency to help you get to where you need to be. So could that be, again, like what we hear as prayers? Is that what the frequency we need? Is that what we see happening? Now, I have something else that just came to mind. I've been wondering for a while, and let's see if you can hear it yourself. Give it a second here. Come on, you can do it. Can you hear that? This is a camera at my front door. And this camera, you hear that sound? I can't hear that sound, but we can all hear that sound coming through that camera. So is this a sound that's emulating from a town, from a source? At night, I can hear this sound. When everything gets quiet, I can hear, it sounds like a fan running it. That sound, there's something going somewhere. You can hear it. During the daytime, you can't hardly hear anything with everything going on. But there's something going on, right? There's something going on in these cities. And it's amazing that it's saying these humming sounds, and it's trying to get us to a certain point. So you got to figure, this is how many years later? 90, 20, 30 some years later than this report that we know of. So what's happening? Because I think we all have the question of, how does this person get this? How does this person don't get this? How does this person, you know what I'm saying? How do they get the mass to take, something in their arm when there's nothing wrong with them? How do they get masses to do things that they do? And then we hear sounds but yet we can't hear the sound. So these same frequencies are talking about the same things that we have heard of that are even in movies, that now they're blue lines supposedly. And that blue line in the movie that you see makes you do things or see things or have thoughts subconsciously. And these are facts, you can look them up, but subconsciously that blue line does something to your frequency, your mind, your energy. Even though you don't see it, I've watched movies like the Transformers. In the Transformers, you see these lines. Other what are called B movies have them in them. A lot of them with what's his name? Brad Pitt, The Fight Club. You ever seen that? There's all kinds of stuff in that your mind don't really comprehend, but it's comprehending. So, all that being said, what's really going on? We'll do 29 and we will close it. Hemisync introduced after that, right? He is exposed for the first time to the hemisync sound frequencies and is encouraged to focus on and develop a perception of the appreciation for those feelings, which accompany the synchronization of the brain waves that results. Next comes the technique of progressive synthetic physical relaxation or semitic physical relaxation, while the hemisync frequencies are expanded to include additional forms of pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well as to calm the left hemisphere of the mind, while raising the right hemisphere to a state of highlighted intensiveness. Once all of this is achieved, the participant, guinea pig, is invited to envisage creation of an energy balloon comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out into the balloon pattern again. The energy balloon, which sets up a pattern very resonant. I could talk now. Shouldn't have listened to those frequencies though. All right, where are we at? Once all this is achieved, the participant is invited to envisage creation of the energy balloon, comprised of the energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out into the balloon pattern again. The energy balloon, which sets up a pattern very resonant of the cosmic egg. Oh no, not the egg again. The cosmic egg discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of the sustainable resonant state, but is also designed to provide protection against consciousness entities possessing lower energy levels, which the participant might encounter in the event that he achieves an out-of-body state. So they're basically entertaining angels and demons. All these movies, all these things, are they just kind of laughing at us? You know, we're believers and we believe, and they got all this knowledge that they just don't think they need to share with anybody. He achieves an out-of-body state. It serves precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant's first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. Yeah, that would be horrible, right? You're sitting there thinking about gummy drops and pink flowers, and a demon comes and kicks you in the teeth. Wow, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for noting this one, you know, because again, a lot of these guys, I'm sure they wasn't told. I'm sure they didn't know what they was getting in for. I'm sure that they, you know, I'm sure they didn't realize what was going on there. Yeah, warring against the Ruach, warring against demons. I mean, I think it kind of depends on where you're at here too. If you're like I said, if you're the soldier that's drunk all weekend and doing all kinds of things and knowing you shouldn't be doing it, well, who are you going to entertain? Who are you going to, your out of body experience? I would say you're probably going to be talking to your demons, your immediate family, if you will, if that makes sense, right? That it makes sense to me, come out of body and who's there? If it ain't the Ruach, that's going to be something else. So I imagine these guys got a lot of kick out of this. I imagine a lot of these had, it's sad, but to know these things, but I believe we should know these things. I think we should know as much as we can. Knowledge only helps us out. And it proves to me, these prove more of what we believe, because if not, we're reading a book. Who believes it? Honestly, you read it, but the church don't intentionally, they don't really make you don't really believe it, do you? I mean, do you believe you can walk on water? Do you believe you can move a mountain? Do you believe, and have you ever even heard of such things? But with this, okay, I understand if I have faith, and it's more than just a magical poofing thing. Faith is a frequency, just like I said, there's no doubt in my mind, if I would have left that pavement and had in my mind, just like I had time and time and time again, I jumped off my porch, which was pretty high in the air, on the same bike, and everything went well. But on this day at this time in here, it's too high. It's too much. I went too far, right? So to faith, yes, it's evidence of things hoped for and not seen. But isn't that a demon? Isn't that an angel? Isn't that the stars? Isn't that what a lot of our life is composed of, really? Is it not? A lot of what we do, say, proclaim is things we don't see. It's things that we can't necessarily explain to average Juliet. Juliet comes and says, explain to me about church and what you know. There's no way. And you would think I'm crazy if I explain to you a third of what right? But what I will explain to you is the beginning. And from the beginning, it's up to you to keep going from there. And if not, then not. But we pursue these things and study these things, and we understand that it's more than just a prayer. We are actually creating things. And furthermore, to see it work, right? A lot of people say, well, how can you prove this? Right? How can you prove what you're saying? Well, there's YouTube videos, and you can do it yourself. If you do like the plants or bread, it works on about anything. What's amazing, you can put bread or plants, preferably probably bread or something of that nature, but you can put on there, and like this jar, you take this jar and you put I love you, and once or twice a day you come and say I love you. Whatever's in it responds to what you're saying, so much so that you can have another jar, exact same piece of bread, the exact same thing, and write I hate you on it, and try it, see if it works. I hate you. And once or twice a day, walk by and tell that piece of bread, I hate you. And within about 5 or 6, 7 days, the one that you say hate you will turn black and mold and look horrific. And the other does the opposite. And the same thing with plants. People talk to their plants and right? You can see in one of these I did with I think it was Brussels sprouts, or one of our, might have been the zesty the zesty sprouts. Anyway, one of them, I didn't write on it, but I just, oh, I love you. I love you. And about 4 days, those things were so green and they taste awesome. I was like, man, that stuff works. I mean, they tasted great. So, it's more than just writings on piece of papers and all this. We can physically use this. We can physically do this, right? So we know exactly the power of life is in the tongue, life and death. Exactly. So until next time, may Yahweh bless you. May his countenance shine upon you. May he grant you shalom. Have a great, wonderful time. And we will do part 3 next Sabbath afternoon, Yahweh willing.